It's the Daily Dog.
How's it going?
Greetings.
Greetings to you. What's up?
Oh man, just not much. Trying to keep up, have a good old time, and all that sort of stuff.
Hear you. I hear you.
Where are you in the world?
I'm at home right now.
Ah,
Yeah, I'm sitting in my streaming room with my old modular in back of me that you can see.
awesome.
Kind of fun. But yeah, this is my room that has like, I'll show you. Here's some light. Hold on.
Dun, 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 dun. Look at all that gear.
A lot of gear, but this room actually is about my piano, which is not open right now, but I've got a 9-foot Steinway in the middle of the room.
Awesome.
It's always nice to have in the middle of a room, but there's synthesizers all along the wall. It's got like just a lot of stuff,
Awesome.
like little setup over here and some new acoustic panels over on the side there and some more things in the back.
That's fun.
Yeah, all my stuff. There's my crazy, one of my crazy spaces. Actually, the other space that I have, which is smaller, which is outside, which I have to actually walk outside my house and get to, is kind of like the man cave. And that's where an album like Wired for Madness, which I guess we'll talk about a little bit.
We shall.
Fun.
Really?
Streaming, yeah.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for, I know it's a busy day. Thanks for taking time out of your day. Today is October 22nd. I can't believe I'm talking to you on the drop day.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just, I'm happy to talk to you too. It's an exciting day.
This worked out. Were you guys supposed to be like on a tour stop today originally, or was that not started yet?
We were supposed to have our first show on October 25th.
Ah,
So it would have been, yeah, we would have started the tour 3 days later. And I just found out that our album is #1 on rock and metal on the iTunes charts.
nice.
So that's,
Okay.
I think, I'm not sure if we've ever really had that in rock. Metal maybe, but not rock and metal.
Congratulations. Really.
Big day.
Yeah.
Big day.
So I read that this one was the first of y'all's albums that you recorded at your own studio.
Exactly.
What benefits are there to and maybe detriments are there to recording in your own space?
It was pretty cool, actually. Mostly benefits, I'd say.
Cool.
We we have our own space, which we decided on having a couple years back, because we found that our world was kind of spread out a little bit, recording here, having gear stored over there, and it was, Dream Theater is kind of a band that has a lot of equipment, and
Sure.
we're like, let's just put it all in one spot, and it just made sense from everybody's point of view to do that. So we found a place, and thanks to our ace techs, as they say, they could go into a kind of a big open space and put up some walls and make different
Awesome.
rooms out of it. So we were able to actually form a very nice live room where we could all set up, with our gear and record. And then we have a control room where the engineer sits, and that's also nice. And we'll just get some work done without anybody looking over our shoulders.
Was most of the tracking done live, or did you guys lay down separate tracks? What was the process like?
The way that it works is we go in, we're all in the room together, we're writing the stuff, we're hashing it out, we're composing while the music and people playing loud parts, and kind of develop this skill, which maybe you would appreciate, which is that, as John Petrucci is like, oh, no, the one part we're working on, I'm like, kind of like composing the next part, believe it or not, with all this other sound in my head.
Sure.
But because we're in the room and we're kind of bouncing off of each other, and one idea leads to the other, and then we lay down sections as we come up with them, trying to kind of put together the parts that'll make up the song. So it's not unusual for us to come up with let's say a verse section and
Sure.
just lay it down, and then we try to get it down enough that we have start to build a structure. But then everybody goes back later on, and for the most part, we do our parts again. I'll use, just for my part, I'll use a sound that works for the section.
Sure.
Generally, I find, I should have a string sound. I don't spend all my time crafting the perfect string sound, but I have one quickly in front of me that'll work for the compositional process. And later on, I'll go, what, I really want to have a little bit more attack on the strings, and maybe it should be a little brighter, and it should be this or that. I'll layer it with this library or that. And then, that's the next phase of it all.
Awesome. So it's like the band kind of cultivates as a group these little building blocks that become pieces, and you like, let's do that again. That becomes a verse, or that becomes a bridge, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And really, and one part leads to the other. I mean,
Sure.
literally, John will come up with an idea, play some chords, and next thing we've got a verse, and then I go, you know what? Wow, I kind of got this thing that could happen next. And everybody goes, that's cool. Then we work on that. And it just, and then after a few sections, we go, well, okay, so we got a verse, we got a chorus. Maybe we need to have an instrumental section now.
Yeah.
So then we set out on that path and we work on that and play around.
So I assume that this was done during COVID times, right? During lockdown. When did you guys go into the studio? How long did the album take?
Oh, we were in the studio like about a year ago, I guess it was. And,
okay.
We went in during the whole lockdown. We actually went in there after we had done the liquid tension experiment stuff, the LTE3 album. That was first in the headquarters.
Okay.
That was the first album I did at Dream Theater headquarters, actually. And then after that, we kind of coordinated ourselves, which was not easy because, the whole COVID thing makes it difficult for anything and everything these days.
For sure.
So we did figure out how to get together and to feel comfortable doing it.
Good.
Finally got together and we recorded, and generally we'll take a couple months of kind of hashing stuff around, writing, and then people start taking turns and tracking and doing all that. And
wonderful stuff. Awesome. Yeah. So I have heard some of the new album, but not all of it. I have included Alien on my channel. That was the first single that came out. Really enjoyed it. Do you have a personal favorite on the new album?
I guess I kind of point to the title track, the epic track, the long one, because as much as I like songs, shorter form things. I mean, I guess the classical musician in me likes music where you develop motifs and you do different techniques to, just like build things, and you take your time and all the different elements that go into kind of making the music really interesting instead of having it be a concise song, which is cool too, but just, I like to have something that's going on in the melody, then maybe try it putting it in the bass and changing the chords and doing all the different stuff.
Awesome.
That I can play with.
It's one of those things. I'm saving that epic track for a future reaction on my channel. So I haven't quite listened to it yet. I've got a lot of folks that are big Dream Theater fans on my Patreon, and they're like, "Are we going to do like a big powwow listen?" I'm like, "Just give me a little bit of time."
right.
But you showed me a little bit of your setup, your gear. I am curious about this. I bought the keyboard that I still use in my own studio like over a decade ago. So like when you go on stage, what's your gear setup like? What all toys do you have?
Yeah, so my setup on stage is very different than the setup that I use for recording. When I'm recording, like this last album, I use a lot of software, a lot of virtual instruments, because we've gotten to a point now where the virtual instruments kind of like are incredible. Like
they sound great.
Yeah, all the orchestral libraries and things like that. That just, I mean, it's just amazing what you can do with software. But I also enjoy having some hardware around me, different keyboards. Actually, one of the instruments that I brought to the Dream Theater sessions was I brought my 1973 vintage Mini Moog.
Oh,
yeah, I got brave and I said, you know what? All right, I'll throw it in the car. If something happens to it, my head tech is there. He can probably fix it. So I was really debating whether or not I wanted to bring the precious, Mini Moog, which is really the instrument that started it all out for me. And of course, my staple, the Korg Kronos, which is the instrument that I use live and do 90% of what I do on, is part of the sessions I've got through the years. I've got a tremendous library of cool sounds, everything from orchestral sounds on there to, all the different keyboard sounds to really heavy sounds that go well with the guitar. And,
I'm curious about that. So I know where to get some of these really nice orchestral patches and sounds that you can use to, like, when you recreate and play things. But do you have the ability to create your own sort of sound bank that you can use and sample and start using it with your instrument in the band? Like,
Not totally sure I'm clear on your question.
like, can you go in and create a specific synth sound or a string sound and dial in the EQs so that you can then apply it towards like playing a solo, like in a.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. I'll do it. I'm, as somebody who is comfortable with synthesizers and samplers, I can do whatever editing or change things as I like. But these days, like starting points, there's incredible orchestral libraries where I can call up a magnificent violin section sound or cellos or trombones or whatever. And sometimes, like, some of the orchestrators that I've worked with, in albums, they'll say, forget about using the orchestra, just play that. And the reason is because, first of all, they use the very best microphones in the world to do these samples. And then they'll do things like my friends at 8DO. It's the number 8DIO, a company that puts out great sound collections. They'll get like 66 trombone players in a room, or 66 cellists, or 66 tubists, or tuba. How would you say it? I don't know. Tuba players, and they'll put them. Yeah, they'll put them all in a room, and they'll say, "Okay, play a G," and it sounds like this incredible sound. So, like, you'll hear on the title track to the new Dream Theater album, I use the 66 trombone sound. Right? It's like
awesome
theme. It's really cool sounding. And then I'll use other libraries just to maybe make it bigger. Of course, I've got to, be heard through a guitar that's as big as, your house.
Yeah, you gotta compete with John sometimes.
Sure. It's got to, some of the sounds got to be pretty mighty, or in reality, they have to have their own particular space in the sonic mix. But it's nice to have a huge, keyboard sound. So I'll do that. So a lot of it's about layering and doing things like, I'll use the 66 trombones. And then if I use the Heaviosity epic horns, they sound amazing together. And then maybe I'll go to my Korg synthesizer and dial in like the harmonics or the filter a little bit, just to exaggerate something that's in there to, just kind of make it surreal or a little bit. I tend to go for sounds. I'm not that into necessarily trying to reproduce the exact acoustic sound of an orchestra.
Makes sense.
I'm more thinking about, because I'm somebody who's a synthesist, I'm more thinking about what's the sound I want, and if it's somewhere between like a synthesizer sound, an orchestral sound, or something exaggerated, or whatever molding or shaping of the sound, it's all fair game.
Fascinating.
So it's kind of like
cool. So I reading up on you a bit. How does a 9-year-old get invited to go to Juilliard?
My first teacher was one of these guys who comes around the house for 30 minutes at a time, and he was a jazz guy, and he brought the little red book with him to teach me the notes. I forget what it was called, something with an S. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
But you probably have a picture of it in your head as well.
For sure, I've seen the little red book. Yeah.
So he brought it to the lesson, but then he quickly realized that I was more interested in like playing chords and stuff, because I just kind of had a knack for just like playing chords. So he was like, you know what, forget about the book. Let me write down this like C, F, G, and just kind of show you what it is. And he made me kind of, I guess, like a circle of fifths kind of thing. And then I started to mess around with those chords and have some fun. And I was just playing songs and on my own. And the teacher started to come for free because he was having a good time with me. I was just kind of playing.
Cool.
So my mother thought that was wonderful. And one day some friends of my parents came by and heard me playing and said, wow, he's very talented. You should really take him to a serious teacher. So they happened to know somebody. This teacher's name was Magda. She was a Hungarian woman, very passionate, temperamental. Her story, very briefly, was that her son, whose name was Bruce Stieg, had gone to Juilliard pre-college and then the college, but he dropped out before he graduated the college to join Guy Lombardo's band.
Oh, nice.
So Magda never recovered. When Magda met me as an 8-year-old,
wow,
then she thought, you're going to be the one to stay. I'm going to get you into Juilliard and you'll be the one to stay there.
Okay.
So a year of intensive training with Magda, who was giving me little kind of maybe not so gentle kicks if I hit a wrong note or played my scales not incorrectly. And she got me ready, and I had the program of Bach and Beethoven and Debussy and an Aaron Copland thing. And I played it at 9 years old for my Juilliard pre-college audition. So, and then I started with my teacher, Catherine Parker, who was a student of Rosina Levine, who was probably one of the most famous piano teachers of the last 150 years. So, so I had this really great training. The first thing my teacher, Miss Parker, said to me was, because I was playing the little C major prelude. I could play harder stuff, but she wanted me to go back. She was like, whatever you learned is wrong. You're playing this. So I brought it in and I started to improvise a little bit with it, and just do my thing. She was like, you can't. That we're not doing improvisation here. That's not what this is about. You have to play what's on the page. So I thought, well, okay. So then I would take my improvisations to a practice room way down the hallway and maybe drag some little friends in there and play boogie woogie and blues and laugh and smile, then come out and straighten up a little bit and go back to our classical training. So that's how it all kind of started. And of course, Magda, I guess in some ways it was a good thing that she was not alive anymore, because I left. I entered the Juilliard College as well when I was 18, but left when I was 19 because I was already on to other things and had enough.
So you enrolled in Juilliard, and I'm sure you would have. I mean, you've got the skills to have gone through the degree program, but you were being called other places.
I was being called. They said when I was 18 and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do for college, my teachers, my parents were all, well, you spent this long doing this, you should go to the college. But of course, at Juilliard, they don't just take you because you've been going there for 9 years already. You got to re-audition.
Of course.
So the preparatory school is one thing, the college is another. So I auditioned and I got in with this woman whose name was Adele Marcus, who was a very famous piano teacher.
Sure.
She said to my parents, your son is going to emerge early on the New York concert piano scene and blah, blah, blah. And actually, you might appreciate this story, which is that walked in there one day for a lesson, about a half a year of studying with her. But I walked in playing the Chopin G minor ballade, and I learned it in about a week. And I could play it, after a week, which I thought was pretty cool. So I came in, I was playing it, I had my music, and I was playing the piece for her. Got about halfway. She came, she took the book away, and I stopped. And she said, well, why did you stop? I said, I stopped because I don't know it by memory. I've only been playing it for 1 week. She said, well, when you study with Adele Marcus, you have to memorize everything the first week. I went, oh, really? And I thought about Genesis and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes and Gentle Giant and King Crimson and my Moog synthesizer.
Right.
And I basically said to her, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. This is it. I got to go.
And you still use notation on tour?
Yeah. And I write. I still, I'm the one in the band that always has a piece of music paper and a pencil. I write. I sit at my piano and I write etudes still, and I love seeing things. And I'm a big improviser, sure, but I also love the art form of figuring things out and having it be in front of me and in manuscript paper.
So I'm going to switch gears. When you go to compose, then, since we talked about that, are you using a pen and paper, or are you at your keyboard kind of recording an improv session? Take us through a bit of your creative process.
These are really interesting things to talk about.
Cool. Thank you.
I compose music in a lot of different ways. And I enjoy doing it different ways. One is, as I said, I'm an improviser. So, and a lot of ideas come from, something that I just feel. I'll sit down and go, especially if you're feeling a particular emotion, somehow my hands can just kind of land on something that might be a little more special than otherwise. And then, if I'm in the writing zone, I'll try recording some of that into my Logic session. Logic is the DAW that I use. Sure. And I'll capture it that way. And then what's interesting is that, especially when I'm working on my own music, like Wired for Madness or something like that, I'll capture it. And then when I go to orchestrate it, I open up the window that shows me the notation of what I just played.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not like I can necessarily even remember all the details of what I did. I might just go like this and dun, 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 dun. Oh, that was cool. Okay, well, let's see it back. Now, wait, okay, I can play, I can see what the bass line is, so I can kind of invent or like follow my bass line. I can add my string line while I'm looking at it, you know, and maybe something that's not there that I want to add, I can add, but I use the notation very much in that case. But I can also write, like a lot of times, let's go to like a Dream Theater thing where I'm sitting there with a piece of music paper on my lap, and I'll be like, you know what, guys, this would be a really cool part to have be kind of contrapuntal, and I really need a few minutes to just like to write this out.
Sure.
So everybody gets a cup of coffee, and I write out what John Petrucci just played, and I sit there with the music paper, and I'm looking at it, and I can line things up. Like you can really only do when you're in that mode.
For sure. You know, when I'm writing, a lot of times I'll do the same thing. I'll sit and I'll be improvising at the piano, and I'll come up with, oh, that was a great sound. Where are my hands? What did I just do? But writing a contrapuntal melody, if you're used to looking at a lot of notation of sheet music, just the shapes of the lines, you just get used to, and you're like, you know, if I have an arc that looks like that, then I need a companion to it and you start just sort of filling in the shapes and using your skills to make sure that the notes are right, you know.
Right. And although, you know, one of the things that I like to do, and that I maybe even pride myself in doing, is to be able to do, you know, to do like a counterpoint improvisation, right? But it's going to be different. If I stop the action and slow it down and write it and look at it, it's going to be different than if it's something that I just play off the top of my head.
Sure.
And it's a different headspace, and I really like that space, and I find that I can come up with different things. The other times that I'll just go more with pencil and paper is if I'm doing something that's harmonically very dense and rich, where I really want to take the time to consider, okay, I played this, and now let's see, I want this voice to maybe move there. That's cool. No, I like that. Okay, I'll move this here. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, yeah, write it down. Ah, that's what I wanted.
That's part of the process that I really enjoy. You know, during this time, everything's kind of a house of cards, and anything can be shuffled or anything can be moved, and it affects everything else. It's such a unique part of the creating process. We've talked though a little bit about Wired for Madness, so I wanted to ask you about this. This is your solo album, I believe, that came out a couple years ago. I read that while it's not a concept album, the title track does have a story behind it. Would you be willing to let us know what was behind the inspiration for that?
Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, I'm primarily a creative person that operates in the musical and sometimes even the visual domain, but I don't so much. I mean, and I've written lyrics certainly throughout my career, not with Dream Theater, but it's not my first real like concern. And you know, I could very much be satisfied with doing an instrumental piece of music. Doesn't necessarily need to have, you know, vocals on it.
Sure.
But when I was thinking about doing this Wired for Madness album, I was kind of thinking, you know what? I realized through the years that, yeah, there's a lot of people who love music and they just listen to music and it's all wonderful. But there's even more people that can allow themselves to get into a piece of music if it has something like a story behind it, or if it has lyrics. Like I might not care. I only notice the lyrics when somebody says something that the syllables don't fit with the sound. I'm very sensitive to, you know, like awkward words in music. All of a sudden I'll go, wait, that just interrupted my flow. Like, just give me something with the words, you know, or with the phrase, and they sound good. And so, but anyway, but most people, I think, are really interested and have an easier time getting into music when there's, you know, a story concept, you know, or a lyrical meaning behind it. So I thought, well, that's cool. Let me find something that turns me on. That's, you know, an interesting kind of an idea that I can craft a, you know, this big piece around.
Sure.
So So I did, and I have a a really good friend who's really like so supportive of me and helps me kind of think about titles of albums and things like that. And we were bouncing around some ideas and came up with this whole idea, Wired for Madness, which the general story is that we're kind of looking ahead in the future just a little bit, because what's happening now is ridiculously crazy in the science world. But like, it's about a character who actually goes in for a special kind of a procedure where he feels like his faculties, his mental, his physical faculties are not what they could be. Okay. So he signs up for this procedure where they actually can increase his abilities to be able to have an incredible memory and to process data and to just like expand his consciousness to a incredibly high degree. Sure. And also his physical body. So, and the song is really about what happens, like the procedure and what happens within that context, and how he it all ends up where the guy, you don't know if he killed himself because it just got too intense. Sure. His brain exploded, or if he reaches like a higher level, just kind of like ascends to like, wherever you go when you leave this plane. So, and I enjoyed that story. So that's I got into writing some words and, and just having fun with that and thinking that this is an extension of the music, and I'm going to do that, so that
was basically recorded there at your estate there.
I recorded almost everything here. The drums, which like Rod Morgenstein played some on, and Marco Miniman, were recorded at different places. And the vocals that are on there are recorded in other places as well. But there's so much of it that's just me and my stuff, sure, playing software, all this stuff. And that was done in my man cave, which is my other space.
Very cool. Well, I've got just a couple more short questions for you. I let some of my patrons know that I was going to be talking to you, and they said, "Ooh, we have questions." So nice. a couple. One of my patrons said that he consistently returns to An Evening with John Petrucci and Jordan Rudess, the concert back in 2004. And he was curious how that particular concert came about, and if you and John have talked about doing another concert like that with newer repertoire.
Wow. Yeah, that album, that concert is something that is brought up almost every day of my life. It's almost like another Liquid Tension kind of thing, where people asking for it, they want it, please do another one of these.
It's very unique stuff. It's really cool.
And it was really enjoyable, because it was in the sense, it was kind of like an LTE thing where John and I got together, we put together some riffs, some main riffs, and then said, okay, we're gonna, almost like a jazz group where they say, okay, this is the head of the song, and now we're going to improvise for a while, and then we're going to go back to the head, and that's it.
Very cool.
So we kind of did that, and we had a lot of fun with that. But we put together, we were basically putting this together for one concert event that we decided to do, and then we also decided to record it. So it all kind of came out of that. It was really fun, and every now and then I ping John Petrucci about it. I said, John, we should really do another evening with John and Jordan. And he says, yeah, we should do that. And then of course we start making a Dream Theater record. We start making an LTE record. I'm off doing Wired for Madness. He's here and there. And it's just like, hopefully one of these days we can return to that.
I really enjoyed the LTE album too, the LTE 3 that came out. I reacted to the Gershwin tune on that one, and that features a lot of your orchestral sounds there on the keyboard. It's a great track. You guys just rip that one up.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's probably my favorite track, and I think, I of course love so much about the album, but that one was a real party for me. I sat after we were together and we kind of hashed out the structure of things, whatever, I sat in my studio with my whole, all my paints, whatever you would call them, all my sonic tools, and I went crazy with it. I was just like, okay, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and now a little, honky tonk thing, a little steel drum, some more violins, some this sound, some that sound. I was like, when I was done with it, I was like, okay, this was a really good project. This is cool. Really fun.
It's kind of fun to go into the sandbox and just play with toys for a while, isn't it?
So fun.
Let's see. On my particular channel or my site, I've got a bunch of people who are classic prog fans, and I've got a bunch of people who are modern prog fans. And I am attempting to get them to talk to each other congenially.
Right.
And we're doing pretty well so far, but I have some classic prog fans who really don't know much of the repertoire from some of these newer bands, including, and I know that it's the 15th album, but including Dream Theater. So where would you suggest that some of these more classic prog fans, and I know you're a fan of the classic, like the 70s giants, you know, where would you suggest that if they start, or with Dream Theater specifically, like one of your albums, or other bands that you think that might be an interesting entry point?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the most popular Dream Theater albums is Scenes from a Memory, which is the first one that I did back in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real favorite of so many people. I would say if it's a kind of band that, they're like a Genesis Yes kind of snob or whatever, and they're not into like metal at all, there's a couple ways I would probably steer them. One way is, you might have even heard this album, which is our Octavarium album. I think that's very like proggy. It has a lot of that kind of sensibility to it. It's not that metal like, although everything Dream Theater does has a little bit of a metal flavor. You can't quite take that out of the team here. But Octavarium is definitely one of the more classic proggy type albums. And also the second album I did with Dream Theater, which is called 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. In those days, everybody was listening to CDs, and the second CD, it was a double CD thing. The second CD, or like side 2, whatever, was real. It's one of my favorites. It's really very kind of keyboard driven, just harmonically, the way the chords are laid out. And I think that would probably be something that, the classic prog people would really, really like.
Awesome.
And then as far as like other music that they might be turned on to, of course, a more current artist that's also has done some music that you could say is more classic kind of in nature, Steven Wilson's music. Porcupine Tree is a group that I think appeals to a lot of the folks that might not be able to digest some of the more heavy prog metal kind of mixture stuff. There's a couple suggestions.
Wonderful. I really do thank you for taking the time to be here, and it's good news that the new album is just selling well, and everybody's reacting well to it. I plan on let me ask you this. I think I'm going to react to another piece on the album as sort of a companion to this interview. I'm also going to look at your title track, Wired for Madness, in the coming week.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
But I think I'm going to dive into the epic, to the title track.
Wow. Fasten your seatbelt.
I'm gonna eat my Wheaties that day and give it my best shot.
That's awesome. What you might appreciate is, I don't know if you know this, but I have a company. It's called Wisdom Music, Wisdom with a Z. And I've had it for some years now. And we do like cutting edge musical applications, like instruments. But a lot of them will run like on an iOS device. Like I can run it on my iPad, as an example.
Cool.
So one of my most popular apps is called Geoshred. And Geoshred is an application that is based on a technology called physical modeling. There's a lot of ways to make sound, like with synthesizers. You can have sampling, you can do subtractive synthesis, like a Moog synthesizer. But there's also physical modeling, which is not sampling at all. It's all done with advanced mathematics. And what they do is they go in and they kind of mathematically or scientifically calculate, like if you're looking at a string or a guitar, they'll look at the size of the string. They'll look at the body of the guitar, how big the body is, what kind of wood it's using. And they'll have mathematic formulas that create the sound of this instrument. And then what ends up happening is that the instrument becomes very organic, because it's not like switching between recorded sounds like a sampler. It's literally, if you pluck harder on a string or softer, it's changing the numbers just with this kind of like very real kind of organic effect. So my partner, whose name is Julia Smith, was one of the inventors of physical modeling.
Cool.
He's out of Stanford University, and we have our instrument, which now has some new models that we put in there. And in the middle of the track, is what I was getting to, in the middle of the title track, you're going to hear it right away. But it's, I think, a very beautiful cello type sound. And I'm playing it on my iPad, and it just comes down to the iPad, me playing on the iPad cello, and John Petrucci playing a very nice kind of clean electric guitar sound, like a duet, and then it kind of builds from there. But when you hear it, think of me with my finger on the iPad playing this cello sound.
So what's the interface like? Are you just like moving your finger around? Like is it a key?
I'm just looking to see if I have my iPad around. You got a minute? I'll show it to you.
Sure. Is
All
it
right,
like yeah, sure.
I'm going to grab it and I'm going to show it to you. Just give me 1 minute. I'll be right back.
Having a lot of fun. This is fun. We're going to get a sneak peek into the interface that Jordan uses here on his iPad.
All right, I'm back. Let me show you. All right, so I'm calling up Geoshred on this iPad, which is here, and then I'm going to tilt the screen down so you guys can see it. Okay, here we are. Cello, show your expression. Okay, so check it out. This is fun. All right, so the interface is like this. It's considered like, these are like frets, and you can think of these almost like strings, right, going across. And what happens is that every note area, like you can see the notes here, like this says A on it, the whole area is expressive. So if I like start at the bottom of the note, it's
I'll be darned. It's amazing what we can do now. Can you can you imagine what Keith Emerson could have done with an instrument like that?
Right? Like it's just incredible. Right. It's funny because I partnered with this guy who invented physical modeling. What I can do on the iPad is as advanced as anything out there right now, as far as like being able to control a solo instrument like that. I mean, like it's crazy. Like, I'll play you one more, if I can find this other one. Violins. Oh yeah, I've just been enjoying this one. This is the new model of a trumpet. I put on finger expression. I can make it growl a little bit on touch also if I want to go.
Wow.
It's crazy, right?
That's insane. I love it. I love it. Well, you know, the thing that strikes me as so unique and I think important about your work and about Dream Theater specifically, your work, you guys are like visionaries and just sort of seek sort of the next thing, the next step. What can we build on? And you're imagining something that's outside of where, like, you've been. You're always seeming to try to push the envelope forward. And in doing so, we come up with these wonderful new abilities to make music and to experience music. And I'm very thankful for the dedication, even after all these years, that you guys put and the hard work y'all put in. For sure.
Thanks, man. I mean, one of the things, it's interesting because one of the things that struck me even before I was in Dream Theater, I've been there for 22 years, but they existed before me. I don't know if you know. But when I first heard them, I was like, somebody brought over a Dream Theater record. I think it was Images and Words. And I heard them play and I was like, wow, okay. So they got like the prog thing going on. They got the metal thing going on. And I knew about that style, you know, both of the stuff individually, but to hear them put together was pretty cool. But what really got me interested is when I heard them like play, I was like, I'm not used to hearing that kind of, you know, virtuoso playing in the rock context. Like,
for sure,
who else is out there that can play like the finest, you know, technical,
you know, that cleanly? It's unbelievable. It really is.
You don't really find that in the rock world, and you don't really find it in the jazz world. You find it in the classical world, where people are, you know, have the structure and they learn technique, as you know, we know that, you know, happens. But I was like blown away. I was like, this is incredible, and that led to my interest in even joining them. So I was like, wow. And so, you know, I found out and hanging out with them while I was, you know, practicing my piano 5 hours a day. They were in their basement, the two Johns, John Mayung, the bass player, and John Petrucci, and they were drilling on, you know, like Metallica and Iron Maiden stuff and Rush stuff. They had a pact, actually, that they wouldn't show up at a party at night unless they put in their 6 hours. So if one of them would see, like, one would go out and they'd see each other, like, did you do your 6 hours of practice today?
You can't eat your pudding if you don't eat your
So it was really incredible to see that work ethic. So I think it's a kind of, you know, Dream Theater is kind of like this unusual kind of work ethic for a rock band. Plus, you know, a little bit of like the spirit of invention. Like John, you know, he's involved. He has his own guitars that he puts out, and I have my own, you know, musical cutting edge stuff that I'm into with technology. And yeah, it is an interesting, unusual bunch of guys, you know, that have managed to come together.
Fun. Well, when the tour gets around to Philadelphia, I have my ticket. Oh, and I am so excited to be coming to my first ever Dream Theater concert. I have a buddy of mine who has played me some of your recordings before, and we would always listen to it in the car on long trips, and I'm like, oh, cool, but you got to get out of the car where you're moving around so you can like concentrate and really listen and experience all that you guys put out. And it's wonderful work, and I do thank you on behalf of all of our fans for your work and for the work of the band, and can't wait to dive into the album and take a look at some of your more your solo work as well. Besides Wired for Madness, I'm sure you have other solo stuff that's
you might enjoy. Well, you'll see how you feel about Wired for Madness, but the other ones that are in the kind of prog rocks, a little bit of electronic vein, are there's Rhythm of Time, and there's Feeding the Wheel. Those are kind of like in the spirit of the Wired for Madness, very proggy, very Jordan-y.
Okay.
You know, and there's also, which your people who like classic prog might really like, is my album called The Road Home. And I say that because The Road Home features my favorite classic prog that I reimagined, you know, in the studio. Like I did a version of Tarkus. I don't know if you know Emerson, Lake and Park.
I do.
Bomber, but you might really enjoy hearing my version of Tarkus. That I'd love for you to do a listening session.
I would love that. I have reviewed Tarkus on my channel, and it's
you got to do my version.
It's one of my favorites. You're on. I will. I will take a look. Home.
All right.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks for your time, Jordan. I really do appreciate it. Good luck with the new album, A View from the Top of the World, Dream Theater, and more solo work by Jordan Rudess. Thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Thanks, Doug. A pleasure.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.